everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and we will discuss on the question Altman and the Lives partnership. What should the AIPC look like? We have our world famous speaker, Professor Rob Enderle. Professor Rob Enderle, what you want to discuss about the questions?
Well, so going back to the prior generations of computing, we started off with punch cards, paper tape, and no monitors. Then we worked over to terminals, and that changed the way we both input information and the way we received it. And then, of course, the PC revolution came, took out terminals. We looked at portability, and we came up with laptop computers, and that was followed by the smartphone revelation, which didn't quite take out PCs because we still have them. But now we've got little computers we carry in our pockets, and of course, smartwatches that we carry on our wrists, but all coming from that same root structure of personal computers. And each one of these things caused a revolution when we went from the prior generation computers in the 1950s to the IBM computers in the 60s and 70s. IBM pretty much took over the market. They became the computer company of the world, and everybody else mostly went away. And then when we went to PCs, a lot of the companies that existed at that time over the next 5 or 10 years kind of went away too. DEC, bye-bye Sun, 2 decades later, Sun Microsystems, and a whole bunch of firms that we lived and worked with in the 80s were gone by the end of the 90s. Smartphones came, and then Apple took over smartphones, and companies like Palm went away. BlackBerry moved from phones to software, and Apple grew into being a consumer electronics company, not just a computer company, surviving. And Microsoft transitioned as we moved into the cloud, and the last generation, or the last revolution, was the cloud, where we kind of shifted so that cloud providers were the end all be all, and the regular outsourcers kind of fell into the background. And now we're looking at artificial intelligence. With artificial intelligence, we have computers that we can talk to that can talk back to us. One of the first attempts to come up with something that looks like and plays like an AI computer came out from Humane, Humane. And theirs was the AI pin, and it was highlighted or launched at CES this year. And it sits on your chest. It doesn't have a screen. It has a laser display that can project text onto your hand, and you can interact with it with your voice, which looks to be going in the right direction, but clearly an alpha product trying to determine what this next generation of computers will be. We had Apple's Vision Pro, another attempt to come up with something very different, a head-mounted computer, which has a display and cameras, so it can interpret what's around you, and you can talk to effectively. Once you get the software right, you'll be able to talk to it. It does eye tracking, so it knows what you're looking at, and it can interpret what it is you're seeing. So it better interoperate with the world around you, though the AI backend and Apple's products are not yet cooked. That's another way to look at where this thing could evolve, because I think we're going to end up having, for the most part, is we're going to need some type of display, probably a head-mounted display, to get information in before a prosthetic. Eventually, it'll probably be a prosthetic, but at least initially be a head-mounted display for information in a voice interface. You don't necessarily need a keyboard, that we are going to have to work on containing the sound. And the device will probably be wearable beyond our bodies all the time and with us all the time, much like our smartphone is today. So it's likely to follow more the smartphone vector in terms of technology than it is to follow the PC vector, because PC started off being anything but portable, and they were kind of forced into the portable side, and really never, except for some fringe warehousing operations, never really made it into the wearable class of computers. I should point out, HP also had a backpack computer for a while to work with their VR headset. But again, it never really established itself as a trend. It was more of a peripheral type of effort, a focused effort for just folks that needed to work around a plant site with VR glasses. And so the computer, as it evolves, will also likely have a major component of it that's in the cloud. We're working on that now. We're trying to balance the difference between edge computing and cloud computing to come up with the right mix. But the idea that much of the computing power will be in the cloud will likely remain for the near term, because AWS and particularly Microsoft, who is the architect of much of this coming change, will set it up that way. But it doesn't have to be. It really depends on how far we go with edge computing and the power at that edge. So that's kind of the opening. We're really looking for a revolution that, as we move from computing as the way it was, smartphones and PCs, to something that really embraces AI and that we will interact with much more like we interact with each other, and then figuring out a way to keep it small, keep it portable, allow it to provide the information we need, but not overwhelm us like smartphones currently do, and better integrate with the way we're doing things today as opposed to the way we did things 10, 20, and 30 years ago. So that's my opening, and I will pass it over to David.
Thank you. Professor David Kelly, my question was, how does the AIPC align with the goals and the objective of the partnership?
Of what partnership?
Partnership in between the Altman and Ives.
Between what?
Between Altman and LVES partnership.
LVE?
Yes.
Johnny Ives and Sam Altman are partnering on a next generation computer for artificial intelligence. That was where we were starting, and so
I'm not familiar with that. That said, I did, just based on the conversation when I first listened, I did help a lot with the initial development of HoloLens, with cloud computing, with a number of other VR systems, augmented reality, and I could tell you, for like augmented reality devices, to get to the point of replacing the PC or the smartphone or something like that, there after HoloLens 2, my guess was they needed at least 2 more generations to be able to commercialize. And Apple's system, I wouldn't even say is even a generation past HoloLens 2. You've got to get, if you want to be the next gen computer, we can put the computing power in a phone, but you've got to get the augmented reality experience to the point of having a much wider field of view, and the device has to not look like I'm a super nerd that takes up half your face. It's Apple is not there yet. Basically, it's gotta be my cell phone and the glasses I'm wearing right now. That's kind of the low bar. If you can get to that level of sophistication, and the field of view has to be 120 degrees or more. Initially, like with HoloLens, the augmented reality looked great, but it was like you were holding toilet paper rolls up to your face and you're looking around like this. HoloLens 2 improved it. Some of the other stuff have improved incrementally past that, but we've still got a long ways to go. And I still think there's a couple of generations before we can get to something that will drive mass consumer adoption. Now, it might not be glasses. By the time we get there, we might just have implants in the back of our head, the way things are going. Like there's University of Washington up here is working on some lens implants that can go in your eyes, that could potentially be way better than like glasses. I've got somewhere around here a Ray-Ban prototype that has a bunch of stuff in it, and it actually is about this, looks this big, but it has all this cameras and different things in it, but it doesn't really do augmented reality that well. And I worked on Google Glass too before HoloLens, but Google Glass really wasn't AR in the way that we think, and I think that was part of the the issue with it and why it didn't get as much adoption as it did. But in any case, for whoever this Altman person and whoever that is to come up with a next generation PC, to make the cell phone obsolete, or to give us a new device um, that could replace the PC. There's still a long ways to go, but my goal is I want to have everything down to the size of this, and I want to be able to sit down with nothing more big, bulky than like the glasses I'm wearing. I want to sit down at Starbucks and see a 42-inch monitor hovering above the table that no one else sees, and I'm doing my software programming there, and I want to see little bubbles popping up above people's heads around that show like their social media ranking, or if I know them, or I want to see this level of sophistication. And they got to also have another window floating nearby with a movie playing, because I mean you can't just be doing one thing at a time, right? You get me a device like that, and that then we're talking. You're if it even if it's like $10,000, you'll start driving a lot of sales if you can reach that level of sophistication. And I think we still have a ways to go. I mean, maybe it's not 10 years, but it could be. And we might get the cyber implants before we get the level of AI or AR and computational power kind of married together and mastered, that I would be looking forward to supplant like the modern smartphone.
Mhm. Thank you. Professor Rob, what kind of hardware configuration is necessary to support the PC functions?
Well, that's just it. It really depends where the AI is running. So the right now for a full AI PC experience, until the NPUs make it to market, and they're kind of coming slowly. We have Mercury Lake from Intel in market, but it's about 16 tops. And right now the estimate is we need at least 40 tops at the edge to get a good experience. But we can get that experience from the cloud. The issue is cloud loading has been fairly significant, and latency has been a problem. So it does look like we're going to need a blend. For David, Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI, the folks that do ChatGPT or the AI behind Microsoft's Copilot. And of course, Johnny Ives is the guy that pretty much was the designer for Apple up until just a few years ago when he left. He was the lead Apple designer. So it's those two coming together makes things kind of interesting. But I'd also started off with pointing at the first attempt at an AI PC is the Humane product called the AI Pin, which you wear like a Star Trek communicator and you talk to, and it has a laser projector on it so that it puts information on your hand when you hold it in front. Clearly not where we need to be, but that's the state of the technology now in terms of something that's truly wearable and small. It's had mixed reviews in implementation, done better than I thought it did, but clearly not the revolutionary product that the founders believe. But in terms of technology, right now it looks like the Snapdragon X Elite has the power in terms of tops, has the battery life that you need in a device like this. It was specifically designed with Microsoft to do the load. So we have a processor, modem, and baseline SoC to do this in a PC form factor, which I don't think is small enough yet. Given its Qualcomm and their dominance in smartphones, getting it down to a smartphone configuration shouldn't be that big a problem for them, since that's what they're moving up from, and they are now falling within a 15-watt TDP. So it makes it possible at least to shrink the device down into something smaller. And of course, as we saw with Lenovo's competitor for the HoloLens, where they removed some of the weight from the head and moved it down to the belt line to lighten the device with a very similar experience to HoloLens, we could likely do the same thing here by separating out the power supply from the unit itself into a multi-wearable device and get the weight loading down to something that somebody might actually wear, but it'd still be pretty kludgy. So in the end, I think we've got the processor we want. We're getting closer with the headsets. Roku, for instance, brought out a 4K headset that's about the weight and size that you would need. A little heavy compared to glasses like I'm wearing, but much lighter than HoloLens and other head-mounted VR displays that we've had in the past, and more comprehensive than Google Glass was. Although Google Glass did meet the weight requirements, people struggled with the size of the display and the overall capability of the glasses. And then, as David pointed out, it's probably going to need to better interact with the real world, much like the Vision Pro does from Apple. But again, to his point, it's got to be much smaller and less intrusive. Or we have to get people comfortable with the fact that they're going to wear these things. That can be done as well. The folks at least a large number of folks were convinced to wear masks for a time if that was necessary. And styles have clearly come and gone in terms of huge hats and the rest that people were convinced were the style of the day. So I am convinced that with the right marketing program, we can get people to wear stuff that they absolutely wouldn't wear today, just by tying that stuff to some level of status. But it would require a conjoint design exercise and marketing exercise, because the way people are right now, they struggle a bit. They struggled a bit even with Google Glass, which was relatively small and unassuming compared to the stuff we're talking about at the moment. And I agree with David. I think the end-all be-all is some type of prosthetic, an installed technology that somehow either intercepts or better integrates with the body's way of perceiving information, and thus kind of addresses the full realm of things we're going to want this to do. Because while we've got the display technology down in terms of head-mounted, we're not really as far into the other senses as we need to be if we want an immersive experience in virtual reality, or to truly integrate the real world with the virtual world, which will be part of the overall effort. But much when I brought up this topic was to really look at things like the AI pin and the Altman Johnny Ives effort, and see if we can come up with something that would be good enough to get people to start thinking that, hey, these smartphones we have and these PCs we have are so last decade. We need something that really addresses AI today. And we've certainly seen these trends in the past. When cars came to market, they were horseless carriages. They were carriages with motors on them. We just put the technology and strapped it to the prior technology, and off we went. And then eventually they became integrated. And with electric cars, we saw much the same thing. The first electric cars were kind of gas cars that had been kludged together with electric engines, which didn't do all that well, except for Tesla, who did a ground up, but it still kind of looked like a car, though the front where the engine went became a trunk. The thing is that these later electric cars that are coming into market in the next couple of years look very different, and they're designed really around the idea of an electric car, and have been designed around artificial intelligence integration. And they kind of look, to at least the prototype designs, look more like driving living rooms than they do the cars they're going to be displacing. And imagine 10 years from now, they're going to look very different. So the idea that computers, once we get this idea of AI down, and being able to converse with computers, they don't need to be configured the way they are now, and would probably be better as some type of device closer to the AI pin than the laptop of today, and using a variety of peripherals to give us the display we need, the pointing capability we need with eye tracking, and then of course a way to mount those cameras without significantly increasing the weight of the device or reducing significantly the battery life of the device, unless we go to some type of other wearable battery design. One final comment: we are in a mad race to fix batteries, and batteries are inadequate for electric cars and devices. And so the next generation of batteries, be they solid state batteries or a completely different formulation, is expected in the next 5 years, and that will also, I think, address a certain number of problems we have with these initial AI computers and wearable computers in general, as well as the electric cars we're struggling with at the same time. So we'll see. And back to David.
So I'll a couple of comments. I think one of the problems with Google Glass was also the usage metaphor. If you've ever used Google Glass, how they made it work was so anti how people expect it. where they had this like there it has this like card metaphor, and everything you do is these card slices stacked on top of each other, and it was really a weird metaphor coming from everything else we've experienced as a as a modern society. Uh, I apologize for not. I don't really keep track of people and or have an interest in people. Like OpenAI is interesting, but Altman, I have no idea who that is. Uh, I mean, I do now because you said it, but I'll forget by this afternoon. Um, uh, and the other thing is, I I mean, I really I in the testing, usability testing that we've done, I don't any of like where you have the glasses and the head like a power pack, you still have wires going. That's not going to work. You're not going to drive consumer adoption with a device like that. It's got to be until you have glasses like this big and my phone and there's no physical connection and it's full 120-degree range, and at least the functionality of HoloLens 2 or the Apple device. um, I just don't see there being like any significant consumer level mass adoption. It's just, I don't think it'll happen until they hit that bar or one like it. Like one thing we could do now with, because I think Rob mentioned the processors being there. Yeah, I think they're there. You could have a device like this that could be your PC. You just stick it on a little docking station and poof, it's a giant. It's your desktop, and then pick it up and go with you. And they have devices like that now, although they have not seemed to pick up in popularity like at all, hardly. Um, but in any case, did you have a question for me?
Yes. What type of AI models and algorithm will the AI PC need to support?
Well, I think Rob kind of hit it on the was right on target in terms of we're going to have some kind of split metaphor with the cloud, especially when you start talking about the use of really big complex systems like language models, large language models, and that sort of thing. I mean, you can get some of that stuff down onto the PC. You might have different machine learning models and things like that are running locally, um, but we're gonna have some kind of hybrid approach in terms of really optimizing the experience. Like one of the things we tested was in a retail space with HoloLens, where say I'm a sales associate and I'm talking to someone, and as they're talking, everything the customer's telling me is like being transposed, and the key topics are being pulled out, and so whatever they're talking about, the system is helping me be an expert at, whether I know anything about what they're talking about or not. And uh, I don't think we're to the point of getting enough AI onto the device that it can be all local. It's going to have that hybrid approach to be able to support the kinds of user experiences that people are going to be excited about.
Hmm. Thank you, Professor Rob.
Yeah, and then I'll have to drop because I've got a meeting coming up in just a little over a minute. So really, as we look at the device, I agree with David. It needs, for the consumer market, we need to move the bar quite a bit. Now, for the commercial market, maybe not so much. The commercial market did accept HoloLens with wired connectivity for longer shift time. That was the Lenovo offering, and often, and they were always, even in the beginning of the century, they were heavy into wearable computers, at least for things like warehouse management and inventory management. They were used, and so very accepting of things that a consumer probably would not accept. Though I still wonder what might have happened back then if we marketed the hell out of the alternative configurations. We might have moved that particular bar, but we didn't, and the people aren't there. And right now in the industry, I'm not seeing the level of marketing chops that are needed to really move that bar the way it would need to be moved if we were really going to get to a complex device that was highly wired and distributed across the body. So we could build it, but they probably wouldn't come on the consumer side. But the commercial side, they will, because there's a current need for the devices for the same things we were doing wearable computers for before. Those needs continue, and for field support, military, the military hardware stuff is kind of both awesome and troubling. But they've done significant work there in terms of distributed devices and head-mounted displays that can do some interesting stuff. In fact, I saw an HP prototype smartwatch 2 decades ago that I would have bought in a minute if they could have made it affordable. The display went halfway up your arm, but it was really cool. But in the end, what we need is a blended device, hybrid. We need the service that goes with it, and we need to be able to mitigate sound so we can talk to the device without driving everybody around us nuts. Because you can see it today, because people are talking into their phones and holding away from them. Yeah, as you're walking, it's a little annoying. You get a lot of people in a room doing that, and it's really annoying fast. And particularly if we start doing telephone calls on the airplanes, it's going to be problematic. So we've got a number of things to solve, but it's going to be small. The device you're going to buy or lease or rent is going to be small. It's going to be wearable. It's going to be battery powered, though the battery technology will likely change quite a bit. And it will largely have a voice interface or some type of biometric interface that allow you to interact with the device without having to use a keyboard or a mouse. Those things are not practical when you're moving. So that's it for me, and we'll chat next time. But I got to run to another meeting. And David, good seeing you again.
Nice to see you too.
Thank you. Professor David J. Kelly, like my last questions and to you, like how will the AIPC handle data security and privacy concern? And what's your closing remarks for today's session?
Well, in terms of security, until they get like quantum security, some kind of quantum encryption down to being able to do that on a device the size of my smartphone with everything else that we need in the smartphone to be a full-blown desktop computer but still be this big, I don't know that they're going to do that much. I think we're reaching the limit of what people are going to be are tolerating without quantum encryption and things like that. Now on the back end, I think we'll be doing a lot more of that kind of stuff to increase security and robustness and hardness to cloud infrastructure and to application servers and data and all this kind of thing. And I think we'll be more cognizant of the risks, but I don't think we're going to do anything different really on the personal device outside of what we're doing in the consumer market. Rob had mentioned some stuff about the commercial market, which he's absolutely right. That's a totally different animal than the consumer market. But at the consumer level, we're not gonna have a big change until we have a big jump in terms of the tech. And we might get to the point of having cybernetic implants before we get to the point of having, the augmented reality glasses and that sort of device sophisticated enough to compete commercially. We'll see, but I think it's something, either way, I think we'll see it within the next decade, whatever is going to be the next great thing. I hope this Altman project, they come up with something brilliant that we haven't thought of, but I'm not, they're not going to be putting large language models on your cell phone without cloud infrastructure, I think, for a long time. Um, so I'm just, maybe, they might, like with HoloLens, where it has some visual processing capability, that they've built with custom chips, and then those different kinds of AI related chips. I'd love to see neuromorphic chips on those devices, and that might actually enable the kind of AR that I'm thinking of, if they can get that kind of graphics processing small enough, light enough, with a low enough power requirement onto into the same space as the existing devices. I think we might see some really exciting stuff, um, and we'll see where it goes. But I think it'll be really exciting, and I'm hoping to be an early adopter of whatever the next greatest thing is. Although, admittedly, I haven't done a lot of AI work in a couple of years because I've been more focused on the AI part, which I think is probably where we're seeing we are not probably, we are seeing the biggest shift in society as the power of these AI systems just kind of increases exponentially.
Thank you, Professor David J. Kelly, for joining today's sessions. I request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible, and especially as you know that we are developing our research center in Bangladesh and Dubai. So, we want to collaborate with your research lab, and uh, any good research proposal we can submit in in our local authority. We are happy to collaborate, and we want to invite you more in World Talent Economy Forum because your idea and your experience will be valuable for us. Thank you, Professor David J. Kelly. Thank you. Bye bye, and take care.
Talk to you later.